My name is Leah Rowe, and I was 32 years old when my family listed me in my own mother's funeral program as her longtime caregiver. Not daughter, not youngest child, not beloved. Caregiver. The word sat under my name in thin gray ink, right between the flower donation note and the church address, as if I had been hired through an agency and paid by the hour. My older sister, Vanessa, was listed as devoted daughter. My brother, Drew, was listed as loving son. Even Drew's wife, who visited my mother twice in 5 years and once complained the hospital room smelled too clinical, was called cherished daughter-in-law. I was the caregiver. I found out in the vestibule of St. Matthew's Church, 10 minutes before the service, while my mother's casket waited beneath a blanket of white roses my siblings had chosen because they photographed well. Vanessa touched my elbow and whispered, "Please don't make a scene today." I looked down at the program, then at her hand, then at the faces of the relatives filing past us, people who had not seen the last 18 months of my life, people who had not watched me lift my mother from bed to wheelchair, people who had not washed her hair in the kitchen sink when the bathroom became too dangerous, people who had not learned how to crush pills into applesauce or sleep in 20-minute pieces because pain comes in waves and grief has a schedule of its own. They only saw the program. Leah Rowe, longtime caregiver. I did not make a scene. That was what my family never understood about me. Quiet was not the same thing as surrender. 2 days later, at the will reading, they laughed when the attorney handed me an old ceramic fern pot with one half-dead plant leaning out of it like it had given up before the rest of us. Vanessa received my mother's jewelry. Drew received her truck and the fishing cabin. My Uncle Peter received cash. My cousins received small checks. And I received a dying fern in a cracked green pot. Drew laughed first. "Mom knew you liked dirt." Vanessa covered her mouth, pretending to be embarrassed for me. My father's sister said, "Well, you always were good with plants." The attorney, Miriam Bell, did not laugh. She looked at me the same way my mother used to look at a locked drawer, like something inside it mattered. Then she said, "Mrs. Rowe left written instructions that Leah is to water the fern before leaving this office." Everyone laughed harder. So I took the little pitcher from Miriam's desk, poured water into the dry soil, and watched as the dirt sank. A brass key rose slowly from beneath the surface. Taped to it was a small plastic tag in my mother's handwriting. "If they call you the help, open the blue door." Before I tell you what was behind the blue door, I need to tell you about my mother. Her name was Evelyn Rowe. To everyone else, she was quiet. To me, she was precise. There is a difference. Quiet people often get mistaken for weak by loud people who cannot hear anything softer than themselves. My mother heard everything. The change in a person's voice when they lied. The difference between a visit and a performance. The sound of a cabinet closing in a room where someone had no business being. She grew up in Western Pennsylvania, married my father at 22, raised 3 children in a blue-gray house on Mill Road, worked 30 years as a school secretary, and somehow remembered every kid who ever came to the office without lunch money. After my father died, she stayed in that house alone. She planted tomatoes along the fence. She paid the taxes early. She kept a key under the 3rd brick by the back steps, even though I told her every burglar in America knew about that trick. She said, "Good. Then they will think like burglars and not like daughters." That was my mother. Sweet when she chose, sharp when necessary. Vanessa was the oldest. Beautiful, organized, and allergic to inconvenience. She sold luxury kitchen appliances in Pittsburgh and talked about marble countertops as if they were moral achievements. Drew was the middle child and only son, which in my family meant he was praised for remembering to bring napkins to a cookout. He ran a small landscaping business that my mother had quietly kept alive with loans he never mentioned and never repaid. I was the youngest, the one who stayed local, the practical one, the one people called when the refrigerator made a sound, when the dog needed the vet, when Mom forgot an appointment, when Dad's old paperwork had to be sorted, when everyone else was just slammed right now. I was 29 when my mother fell in the laundry room. She broke her wrist and hit her head hard enough to scare the emergency room doctor. At first, we thought it was an accident. Then she started dropping cups. Then her right foot dragged. Then came the scans, the neurologist, the diagnosis that sounded like a door closing softly. Progressive supranuclear palsy, a rare brain disorder. No cure, no clean timeline. It would take movement first, then speech, then swallowing, then everything else it wanted. Vanessa cried on speakerphone for 10 minutes and said, "We'll all take turns." Drew said, "Absolutely. Family steps up." I believed them for almost 3 weeks. That was generous of me. The calendar Vanessa created had color-coded blocks. Vanessa, Tuesdays. Drew, Fridays. Me, Mondays and Thursdays. A paid aide on weekends. By the end of the first month, Vanessa had client emergencies every Tuesday. Drew's truck was always in the shop on Fridays. The aide quit because Drew forgot to pay his share, and Vanessa said she had not agreed to the rate. So I moved into my mother's house, temporarily. I was working as an intake coordinator at a rehabilitation clinic in Wheeling. I cut my hours, then cut them again. Then quit when Mom aspirated during breakfast and spent 3 days in the hospital while Vanessa complained in the family group chat that I was making everything sound worse than it was. After that, there were no more rotations. Just me. Me and the pill organizer. Me in the shower chair. Me and the speech exercises. Me and the protein shakes. Me and the choking episodes. Me and the nightlight in the hallway because Mom got scared if she woke up and could not remember which room she was in. Every few months, Vanessa arrived with flowers, took a photo holding Mom's hand, posted it with captions like, "Cherishing every moment with our brave mama." Drew stopped by when he needed a check signed or a tool from Dad's garage. He kissed Mom on the forehead, called her tough lady, and left before dinner. I was the one cleaning the commode. So naturally, I was the one nobody photographed. The first time my mother called me witness, I thought she was confused. It was late winter. Snow had hardened along the edges of the driveway, gray from the road salt. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in a blue cardigan, trying to sign her name on a form from the insurance company. Her hand trembled. The pen scratched the paper, making small broken lines. "I hate this," she said. "I know." "No, you do not." I looked up. She was staring at her hand. "I hate that they think because my body is unreliable, my mind is available for rent." That sentence was pure Evelyn Rowe. Sharp enough to cut a ribbon? Who thinks that? She looked toward the dining room, where Drew had been sitting an hour earlier, explaining that it would be more practical if he had access to her checking account for business expenses related to house maintenance. Everyone who waits for weakness, she said. I sat across from her. Mom, if Drew is pressuring you, he is not smart enough to pressure me. He is only loud. I laughed before I could stop myself. Her mouth twitched. Then she reached for my hand. Leah, I need you to listen. I listened. When people come after what is left, they will talk about fairness. They will not talk about time. They will count children, not hours. They will count blood, not care. Do not argue with them. Mom, no, arguing is how they pull you into their weather. She squeezed my fingers. You are my witness. I did not understand then. I thought she meant witness to her illness, witness to her pain, witness to the days that would disappear because nobody else wanted to remember them. I did not know she meant legally. Evelyn Rowe was dying, not careless. There is a difference. 6 months before she died, Vanessa invited herself over with a notary. That is how she said it. I'm bringing a friend who is a notary. As if people arrived with notaries the way they arrived with casseroles. Her friend was a woman named Celeste who wore red lipstick and had the nervous smile of someone realizing too late that the family favor she agreed to might be uglier than described. Vanessa placed a folder on the kitchen table. Mom, we just need to simplify a few things. Mom was in her recliner, a blanket over her knees. Her voice had become slower by then. Not weak, slow. People who did not know her mistook the pauses for confusion. I knew she was choosing each word because each one cost energy. What things? Vanessa smiled. Bills, the house, the cabin, medical decisions. Leah is overwhelmed, and we all know paperwork is not really her strength. I was standing by the sink washing the syringe used for Mom's liquid medication. I turned off the water. My paperwork is fine. Vanessa ignored me. Drew and I think it makes sense for me to be power of attorney. I understand legal documents better, and Drew can help with property maintenance. Mom looked at the folder. Then at Celeste. Did my daughter tell you I asked for this? Celeste swallowed. She said the family had discussed it. Mom looked at Vanessa. Did I discuss it? Vanessa's smile tightened. Mom, don't be difficult. We're trying to protect the house. From whom? From confusion. Mom nodded slowly. Then she turned to me. Leah, bring the black binder from the hall closet. Vanessa blinked. What binder? The one I did not tell you about. I brought it. Mom asked me to open to the first tab. Durable power of attorney? Healthcare directive. Living trust certificate. All signed. All notarized. All dated 7 months earlier. Vanessa stared at the pages like they had insulted her. Mom said, Miriam Bell handled everything. Leah is my agent. Leah is my healthcare proxy. Leah is successor trustee. Drew, who had wandered in halfway through because he smelled conflict, said, You made Leah in charge? Mom looked at him. No, I made the person who shows up in charge. That was the first time I saw real fear on Vanessa's face. Not sadness. Not concern. Fear. Because the family had been waiting for my mother's illness to make her easy to manage. They had not expected her to be prepared. After that, everything got colder. Not openly. That was not Vanessa's style. Vanessa weaponized politeness. She began texting me things like, "Just checking that Mom's pain meds are being tracked properly. Could you send me a photo of the pill organizer every morning? Drew says the garage looks messy. Are you keeping up with basic maintenance? Do you think maybe you need help managing the stress?" Every message was a seed. If I refused, I looked defensive. If I complied, I became staff. I sent photos. I documented every dose. I kept a notebook with dates, symptoms, meals, appointments, visitors, and incidents. Not because Vanessa asked. Because my mother had taught me, write things down before someone rewrites you. The hardest months were the final 3. Mom could not swallow safely anymore. Speech became a whisper. Her eyes stayed sharp. Sometimes she would tap the arm of her chair twice when she wanted the whiteboard. One night, after Vanessa had left early because the energy in the house was heavy, Mom wrote, "Do not let them sell the house before you see the blue door." I thought she meant the pantry. The pantry door was blue. Old blue paint chipped near the handle. Behind it were canned tomatoes, flour, tea, and the emergency chocolate she pretended I did not know about. "What is behind the blue door?" I asked. She only smiled, then tapped the board again. "When they call you the help." That was all she wrote. I thought it was illness. A fragment. A memory breaking loose. It was not. My mother was leaving breadcrumbs in a house full of birds. She died at 4:12 on a Monday morning. There is no poetic way to say that. The room was dim. The humidifier was running. Rain tapped against the window. I was sitting beside her bed, one hand under hers, counting the spaces between breaths. When the last one came, I knew before the hospice nurse said anything. I felt the house change. Not dramatically. No lights flickered. No wind rose. The world is cruel in how ordinary it remains. The nurse called time. I called Vanessa. She did not answer. I called Drew. He picked up on the 4th ring, voice thick. "What?" Mom passed. Silence. Then, "Are you sure?" I looked at the nurse. "Yeah, Drew, I am sure." Vanessa arrived at noon wearing full makeup and a cream coat. Drew arrived 20 minutes later and asked if anyone had called the lawyer. Not the funeral home. The lawyer? I remember that. Grief reveals priorities faster than joy ever could. The funeral planning became their production. Vanessa chose the flowers. Drew chose the expensive casket, then asked whether the estate reimbursed funeral costs. I chose the hymns because Mom had written them down. Vanessa objected to "It is well with my soul" because it felt too plain. I said it was what Mom wanted. Vanessa said, "You keep saying that like you are the only one who knew her." I looked at the pile of medication logs on the counter. I am not the only one who knew her. I am the only one who stayed long enough to know what she wanted. She slapped me. Not hard. Hard enough. Then she cried first, so Drew would comfort her. At the funeral, I was the caregiver. 2 days later, I was the girl with the fern. And then the key rose from the soil. Miriam Bell asked everyone to leave the conference room while I held the key. Vanessa laughed. "You cannot be serious." Miriam folded her hands. Mrs. Rowe's instructions are specific. Drew leaned back. So now Mom is playing scavenger hunt from the grave? Miriam looked at him over her glasses. Your mother had a remarkable sense of timing. The relatives filed out slowly, annoyed and curious. Vanessa paused at the door. Leah, whatever this is, do not make it weird. I looked at the key. It was weird when you made me staff in the funeral program. Her face hardened. You are being dramatic. There it was. The family hymn. Miriam closed the door before I could answer. Then she reached into her briefcase and removed a second envelope. Your mother asked me to give this to you only after you found the key. My hands shook then. Not before. Then, inside was a map. Not a treasure map. Not exactly. A hand-drawn layout of Mom's house. Kitchen, pantry, back stairs, basement, laundry room. A small square marked in blue behind the old freezer. Miriam said, Would you like me to come with you? I looked at her. She was not family, but she was the first person in 2 days who had asked what I wanted. Yes, I said. We drove to Mom's house in separate cars. Vanessa and Drew followed, of course. By the time we pulled into the driveway, Drew had already called Uncle Peter, and Vanessa had texted someone named Realtor Janine, which told me exactly what they had planned. The blue door was not the pantry. It was in the basement, behind the old upright freezer that had not worked since 2009 was a narrow painted panel in the wall. Blue. The same blue as the pantry door upstairs. I had walked past it hundreds of times without seeing it because the freezer blocked half the view and a shelf of paint cans blocked the rest. Drew moved the freezer with a grunt. Or probably just Dad's old junk. The brass key fit. The door opened into a small storage room. Not large. 6 feet by 8. Concrete floor. Cedar shelves. A metal filing cabinet. A fireproof safe. And on the far wall, taped above the light switch, a note in my mother's handwriting. If you are reading this, they laughed too soon. Vanessa pushed past me. What is this? Miriam stepped between her and the cabinet. This room and its contents are part of Mrs. Rowe's trust instructions. Please do not touch anything until inventory is complete. Trust? Drew said. His voice changed on the word. Miriam opened her leather folder. Your mother created the Evelyn Rowe Care Trust 11 months ago. Vanessa said, She was sick 11 months ago. Miriam did not blink. She completed 2 independent capacity evaluations before signing. Both confirm full legal capacity. Drew laughed once. This is insane. Miriam looked at him. Your mother anticipated that response? Inside the filing cabinet were binders. House deed. Rental duplex. Insurance policies. Care logs. Loan records. Visitor records. Funeral instructions. The care logs were mine. Not copies. Originals? Every notebook I had filled over 18 months. Mom had saved them. Every appointment. Every medication change. Every missed visit from Vanessa. Every canceled shift from Drew. Every text message printed and dated. Every time Drew borrowed money. Every time Vanessa suggested Mom was confused while asking for financial access. There were bank statements showing loans to Drew's business totaling $93,000 over 7 years. There were emails from Vanessa to a real estate agent asking for informal estimates on the house while Mom was still alive. There were copies of the attempted power of attorney Vanessa brought with the notary. And there was one sealed flash drive labeled, "Play if they call Leah the help." Miriam looked at me. "This is your decision." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Oh my God, are we really doing this?" I thought of the funeral program, the gray ink, longtime caregiver, the church vestibule, my mother's casket beneath white roses. Yet, I said, We went upstairs to the living room because my mother, even in death, had better staging instincts than Vanessa. Miriam plugged the flash drive into her laptop. My mother appeared on the screen, thinner, paler, in the blue cardigan. But her eyes were clear. Vanessa sat down. Drew stopped moving. My mother looked into the camera and said, "My name is Evelyn Rowe. Today is January 18th. Miriam Bell is present as witness. I am making this recording because my children have a gift for calling greed concern." Drew whispered, "Jesus." Mom continued, "Vanessa, you will say Leah manipulated me. Drew, you will say I was confused. Peter, if you are there, you will pretend to be neutral while looking for your share. I know you. I love you. Those two facts can exist together." I pressed a hand to my mouth. On the screen, my mother turned slightly towards someone off camera. Then back. Leah did not take advantage of me. Leah gave up her job, her sleep, her privacy, and most of her 30s to care for me when everyone else had reasons not to come. If anyone refers to her as the help, the caregiver, or the girl who lived off me, understand this. She paid the highest price in this family, and she paid it without sending an invoice. Vanessa began crying. Quietly. Not performance crying? Not yet. My mother's voice slowed, but every word landed. The house on Mill Road, the rental duplex on Archer Street, my investment account, and the life insurance proceeds are held in the Evelyn Rowe Care Trust. Leah Rowe is successor trustee and sole beneficiary of the residential properties. Vanessa and Drew have received the gifts named in my will. Those gifts are not mistakes. They are limits. Drew stood. No. On screen, my mother said, "If Drew says no, remind him the total unpaid loans are in Binder 4. He sat back down. Miriam did not smile. I almost did. Mom continued, "If Vanessa cries, let her. She has survived many things, but rarely consequences." Vanessa covered her face. "If Leah is watching this, sweetheart, I am sorry I could not say all of it in the room while I was alive. I wanted peace. Then I realized peace without truth is just silence with better manners. You were not the help. You were my daughter. You were my witness. And now you are free." The video ended. No one spoke. The house hummed. Old refrigerator. Rain gutters. The furnace kicking on. All the ordinary sounds that had carried us through the end. Then Drew said, "So Leah gets everything?" Miriam replied, "Leah receives what your mother placed in trust. You and Vanessa receive what the will provides." Vanessa looked up, mascara wet on her cheeks. "How much?" Not why. Not did Mom suffer. Not Leah, I am sorry. How much? Miriam said. The two properties and associated accounts are currently valued at approximately $3.8 million. That number changed the air. Vanessa looked at me like I had become a locked vault. Drew looked at Binder 4. I looked at my mother's empty chair. They challenged it. Of course they did. Not that day. That day they were too shocked. Drew stormed out first. Vanessa followed after saying, "I hope you are happy," which is what people say when they cannot say. "I hope you are easy to blame again." Uncle Peter called that night. "I just think we should all sit down as a family." I said, "We did. You laughed at a fern." He hung up. 2 weeks later, Vanessa and Drew filed a petition claiming undue influence, diminished capacity, and financial exploitation. They said I isolated Mom. They said I controlled her medication. They said I manipulated a sick woman into signing over assets. They said I had lived in her house rent-free and benefited from her decline. They did not mention the commode. They did not mention the choking. They did not mention the shower chair. They did not mention the 1.5 years of nights I woke every hour to check whether she was breathing. Because care sounds noble until someone has to describe the labor. Then suddenly it becomes invisible. Miriam was ready. My mother had made sure of that. Capacity evaluations. Video statement. Doctor letters. Hospice notes. Text records. The attempted notary incident. Printed emails. Bank statements. Visitor logs. And my notebooks. My boring, detailed, relentless notebooks. The ones Vanessa had mocked. The ones Drew had called Leah's little obsession. In court, those notebooks became evidence. Date. Time. Medication. Symptom. Visitor. Missed visitor. Incident. I had not been writing a diary. I had been building a wall. The judge was a woman named Helen Armand, with silver hair and no tolerance for theatrical grief. Vanessa cried on the stand. Drew got angry. Uncle Peter used the phrase family legacy 4 times. Then Miriam played the video. My mother filled the courtroom. Not physically. Completely. By the time she said, "Those gifts are not mistakes. They are limits," Judge Armand had stopped taking notes and simply watched. When the video ended, Vanessa looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Drew looked like a man who had just found out the door he planned to kick open was made of steel. The petition was dismissed. The trust upheld. Vanessa and Drew's cash gifts under the will were temporarily frozen under the no contest provision until final accounting. Binder 4 led to a separate repayment agreement for Drew's loans. Vanessa's real estate agent withdrew from the proposed sale of Mom's house so quickly, she sent Miriam an email with 3 apology paragraphs and a typo in every one. The house stayed mine. Not because I wanted a victory, because my mother wanted me to have a home no one could vote me out of. The first night I slept in the house after the court ruling, I did not sleep at all. I lay in Mom's room because I had not yet learned how to enter it without expecting to hear her call my name. At 2 a.m, I went downstairs. The Fern sat on the kitchen table. Still half dead. I had repotted it after the will reading because apparently even symbolic inheritances need drainage. 1 green frond had lifted. Just one. I touched the edge of it with my finger. Dramatic, I whispered. Mom would have liked that. The months after the ruling did not become easy. People think legal clarity creates emotional clarity. It does not. Vanessa sent 3 emails. The first angry, the second colder, the third strangely honest. She wrote, "I hated you because Mom needed you more than me. I told myself you were controlling everything because the alternative was admitting I chose not to come." I read that sentence for a long time. Then I replied, "That is a place to start." Drew took longer. His landscaping business nearly collapsed when the repayment agreement began. He called me one afternoon and said, "If you make me pay this, I lose 2 trucks." I said, "Mom paid for those trucks." Silence. Then, "I know." It was the first true sentence he had offered me in years. We set up a structured repayment plan through Miriam. No family discount. No public humiliation. Just numbers. Responsibility. The thing my mother had wanted. Uncle Peter stopped calling after Miriam sent him a letter reminding him that neutral relatives do not threaten litigation in group texts. My father had been gone for years, but somehow I still wondered what he would have said. Probably nothing. The men in my family had mastered absence in both life and death, so I stopped asking ghosts for testimony. I turned the house into something living. That was the only way I could stay. I kept Mom's bedroom for 6 months. Then, on a Saturday in April, I opened the windows, washed the curtains, folded her cardigans into cedar boxes, and painted the walls a soft green she would have pretended not to like. The rental duplex on Archer Street became affordable housing for 2 single mothers from the rehab clinic where I used to work. I charged below market rent. Vanessa called that financially naive. Miriam called it within your rights. I called it sleeping at night. The blue room in the basement became an archive, not a shrine. A record? The binders stayed. So did the flash drive. So did the funeral program. I framed nothing. I displayed nothing. But I kept it all. Because someday, if memories softened too much, I wanted proof. Not proof that they were cruel. Proof that I survived being called less than I was. 1 year after Mom died, I held Thanksgiving at the Mill Roadhouse. I almost did not. Then I remembered my mother saying, "Do not argue with them. Arguing is how they pull you into their weather." So I chose my own weather. The table was smaller. Miriam came. So did 2 nurses from hospice. My old supervisor from the rehab clinic. Mrs. Albright from next door, who had brought soup every Thursday and never asked for credit. Vanessa came alone. Drew came with his daughter, Lucy. Uncle Peter was not invited. Before dinner, Vanessa handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for the first installment of legal fees she had agreed to reimburse under the settlement. "I am not asking for forgiveness," she said. "Good." She flinched, then nodded. "I am asking if I can help wash dishes." I looked at her hands. Perfect manicure. No idea how to hold an apology without cutting herself on it. After dinner, I said, "Drew brought rolls. They were store-bought and slightly crushed." Lucy made place cards with everyone's names in purple marker. "Mine," said Aunt Leah, "not caregiver." I kept it. At the end of the night, after everyone left, I found Vanessa in the kitchen washing the roasting pan badly. She was crying. Quietly. For once, not where anyone could see. "I saw the care logs," she said. "I know." all of them. I know. I did not know it was that much. I leaned against the counter. You did not want to. She nodded. The truth did not heal us, but it entered the room and sat down. That was more than we had before. If there is one thing I want you to understand, it is this. Some families will call you selfish for surviving the job they assigned you. They will call you dramatic when you name what they did. They will call you greedy when you accept what someone gave you freely. They will call you the help because the word daughter would require them to admit what they did not do. Let them talk. Keep records. Keep your voice. Keep the letter. Keep the key. My mother left me a Fern because she knew they would laugh at anything that looked small. She knew they measured love in property, cash, titles, and the order of names printed in funeral programs. She also knew I would water it anyway. That was the test. Not whether I wanted money, whether I would care for what looked worthless after everyone else walked away. My name is Leah Rowe. For 18 months, I was the one who stayed. For 2 days, I was the caregiver in gray ink. For one afternoon, I was the girl who inherited a dying plant. Then the key rose from the soil, and my mother, quiet as she was, finally had the last word. My name is Leah Rowe, and I was 32 years old when my family listed me in my own mother's funeral program as her longtime caregiver. Not daughter, not youngest child, not beloved. Caregiver. The word sat under my name in thin gray ink, right between the flower donation note and the church address, as if I had been hired through an agency and paid by the hour. My older sister, Vanessa, was listed as devoted daughter. My brother, Drew, was listed as loving son. Even Drew's wife, who visited my mother twice in 5 years and once complained the hospital room smelled too clinical, was called cherished daughter-in-law. I was the caregiver. I found out in the vestibule of St. Matthew's Church 10 minutes before the service, while my mother's casket waited beneath a blanket of white roses my siblings had chosen because they photographed well. Vanessa touched my elbow and whispered, "Please don't make a scene today." I looked down at the program, then at her hand, then at the faces of the relatives filing past us, people who had not seen the last 18 months of my life, people who had not watched me lift my mother from bed to wheelchair, people who had not washed her hair in the kitchen sink when the bathroom became too dangerous, people who had not learned how to crush pills into applesauce or sleep in 20-minute pieces because pain comes in waves and grief has a schedule of its own. They only saw the program. Leah Rowe, longtime caregiver. I did not make a scene. That was what my family never understood about me. Quiet was not the same thing as surrender. 2 days later, at the will reading, they laughed when the attorney handed me an old ceramic fern pot with one half-dead plant leaning out of it like it had given up before the rest of us. Vanessa received my mother's jewelry. Drew received her truck and the fishing cabin. My Uncle Peter received cash. My cousins received small checks. And I received a dying fern in a cracked green pot. Drew laughed first. Mom knew you liked dirt. Vanessa covered her mouth, pretending to be embarrassed for me. My father's sister said, "Well, you always were good with plants." The attorney, Miriam Bell, did not laugh. She looked at me the same way my mother used to look at a locked drawer, like something inside it mattered. Then she said, Mrs. Rowe left written instructions that Leah is to water the fern before leaving this office. Everyone laughed harder. So I took the little pitcher from Miriam's desk, poured water into the dry soil, and watched as the dirt sank. A brass